When Amara turned 18, the world seemed wide open to her. She had just finished school, full of excitement for the future, and I could see her standing on the threshold of a new life. She had dreams bigger than our small town, dreams of traveling, studying abroad, and working in humanitarian fields to help the less fortunate. She was a bright soul with kindness in her heart and a light that made everyone around her feel hope. But in our family, not everyone saw her brightness as a gift. My husband's parents, Amara's grandparents, saw her independence as defiance. From the day she was born, they acted as if she belonged to them. They dictated her education, her friends, even what she should wear. They often said, "Family comes first," but what they really meant was, "Our control comes first." I tried to shield my daughter as much as I could, but there was only so much resistance I could offer without tearing the family apart. When my mother-in-law suggested a family trip overseas for Amara's 18th birthday, I hesitated. The destination made my heart sink. It was a country listed under the strictest "do not travel" advisories. There were warnings about unrest, violence, and unstable political conditions. Everything in me screamed to say no, but my mother-in-law brushed aside my concerns. "Stop being dramatic," she said with her usual sharp tongue. "You coddle her too much. She needs to grow up. This will be good for her." I turned to my husband, hoping he would stand with me. But as always, he chose silence, unwilling to challenge his mother. I felt cornered, manipulated, and helpless. Against my instincts, I agreed, thinking that at least surrounded by family, Amara would be safe. The night before the trip, I hugged my daughter tighter than usual. "Stay close to them. Don't wander off. Keep your passport with you at all times," I said, my voice heavy with worry. She smiled and kissed my cheek. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be fine. I'll be back with stories to tell." I tried to smile, but deep inside, I felt an unshakable dread. That dread became reality sooner than I could have imagined. Several days into the trip, I received a call. It was Amara, her voice trembling, broken, and laced with terror. "Mom, they left me. I don't know what to do. I don't even have my passport." My knees gave out beneath me. "What do you mean they left you?" Her words came out in sobs. My in-laws had taken her to a crowded market and, without warning, abandoned her there. They took her passport, her money, and her luggage with them. They didn't answer her calls. They didn't come back. My daughter, barely an adult, was stranded in a dangerous foreign country with no identification, no resources, and no family. I couldn't understand it. Why? How could they do this to her? Later, I would learn my mother-in-law's cruel reasoning. She believed Amara was too dependent on me, too soft, and this was her way of teaching her a lesson. But leaving an 18-year-old girl helpless in a country marked unsafe wasn't discipline. It was cruelty. That phone call ended with me crying alongside my daughter, powerless to reach through the distance and hold her. All I could do was promise I would find a way to bring her home. The next days were the darkest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate. My every waking thought was of Amara, alone and scared in a foreign land where even locals feared walking the streets at night. She survived 2 nights by hiding behind a small shop, where a kind stranger gave her scraps of food and water. But the streets were filled with checkpoints, soldiers, and unrest. Every sound startled her, every shout made her tremble. She told me later that she clutched her small phone so tightly her hand cramped, terrified that if it died, she would lose her last lifeline to me. Meanwhile, my in-laws were nowhere to be found. They had taken her documents and continued their holiday, as though nothing happened. When I tried calling them, they either ignored me or responded with cruel indifference. "She's 18 now. She'll figure it out," my mother-in-law said coldly before hanging up. I called the embassy in desperation, begging them to help. They assured me they would try to locate her, but they needed proof of her identity. Without her passport, the process was slow and complicated. Each hour felt like a lifetime. Finally, after what felt like endless days, she was escorted to safety by embassy staff. I collapsed in relief when I heard the words, "She is with us now." But when she came home, I realized the true damage wasn't physical, it was emotional. Amara was no longer the bright, fearless girl I had sent off. She clung to me like a child, her body trembling. She couldn't sleep without the lights on. She jumped at sudden noises. Her once vivid dreams of traveling and helping others were replaced by nightmares of being lost, abandoned, and unwanted. And my in-laws. They showed no remorse. They dismissed her trauma as dramatics. My mother-in-law sneered, "She'll toughen up. You baby her too much." My husband remained silent, paralyzed by his fear of defying his parents. That was my breaking point. I realized I couldn't count on anyone, not my husband, not his family. It was me and my daughter against the world. And I swore I would help her heal, no matter how long it took. Healing wasn't easy. It took months of therapy, countless sleepless nights, and small steps that felt like mountains. At first, Amara couldn't even step outside alone. She had panic attacks in crowded spaces. The girl who once dreamed of humanitarian work now trembled at the thought of leaving home. But I stood by her side. I reminded her every day that what happened to her wasn't her fault. That she wasn't weak, she was a survivor. Slowly, she began to rebuild. First, she started volunteering locally, helping children in need. Then, she applied to universities again, even though fear gnawed at her. My in-laws mocked her efforts. They spread whispers in the community, saying she was unstable, that she would never succeed. But I told Amara, their cruelty doesn't define you. Your strength does. And she proved me right. 2 years after her ordeal, she received a scholarship to a top university abroad, ironically, in international relations and humanitarian aid, the very path they had belittled her for. It wasn't easy. Every form, every test, every journey felt like another battle. But she fought through it all. She left home again, this time not as a naive girl but as a resilient young woman determined to carve her own path. Amara flourished. She made a name for herself in humanitarian programs, working with refugees and vulnerable communities. Her story of survival and resilience inspired others. She was invited to conferences, honored with awards, and praised for her courage. And then came the moment of poetic justice. At a prestigious local event, attended by politicians, business leaders, and, most importantly, my in-laws, Amara was honored publicly. Cameras flashed, applause roared, and the crowd whispered her name in admiration. As she stepped onto the stage, I saw my mother-in-law's face in the audience, bitter, pale, unable to mask her shock. The same granddaughter she had abandoned, humiliated, and dismissed as weak was now being celebrated as a symbol of strength. Amara spoke with a steady voice that silenced the room. Sometimes, the people closest to us try to break us. But strength isn't born in comfort, it's born in survival. I stand here today not because I was never broken, but because I refused to stay broken. The applause that followed was thunderous. And in that moment, our revenge was complete. Not through anger or vengeance, but through undeniable success. My in-laws had tried to destroy her spirit. Instead, they became witnesses to her triumph. Today, Amara continues her journey, helping others who have been silenced or abandoned. And I stand beside her, proud, knowing that betrayal may have scarred her, but resilience turned those scars into armor. The lesson is simple: family is not defined by blood, but by love and loyalty. Those who betray us only teach us the value of those who stand by us in the darkest hours. My daughter's pain became her power, and her survival became our victory.